Bonjour French 1. Today is your study guide for your section 4.1 test. Remember, you will not be allowed to use these study guides on the test, but I do tell you exactly what to expect and in what format for the test, so it's a really great way of preparing. For the first section on the test, you will be asked to match a picture that represents a class with the actual French word for that class. So it's important that you know the French words for some classes, but you will not have to know how to spell these out. PE class in French is le PS, stands for Éducation Physique et Sportive. Chemistry class is la chimie. Math class is les maths or les mathématiques. Computer class or computer science is l'informatique. German class is l'allemand. Art class is les arts plastiques. Music class is l'éducation musicale. And geography class is la géographie. Now, in the second section of the test, that's where you will have to actually know how to spell out some names of classes. Basically, they'll give you a clue to try and get you to think of a class, and you have to write that class in French. The good news is the 5 questions that are on your test are among these 7 on your study guide. So if you at least know these 7, you're guaranteed to know the 5 for the test. So for the first one, if you think of Albert Einstein and A plus B equals C, you should either be thinking of les maths, or les mathématiques if you want to go the long way, or la physique. But again, you'll only have to write down one of those, but you will be writing it down off the top of your head. This section of the test looks just like it does right here. Sorry about that interruption. So continuing with number 2, George Washington, 1492, Napoleon, these are things you discuss in your history class. So the French word for history is l'histoire. Bonjour, Paris, merci, these are all things you should definitely be thinking about in your français class, your French class. Une carte, remember, is a map. So une carte d'Asie is a map of Asia, and les continents are the continents. You'll be thinking about those kinds of things in la géographie, geography class. The words hola, señorita, gracias are all things that you hear about in Spanish class, which in French is l'espagnol. La musique classique would be classical music. Chanter would be singing. You sing and listen to classical music in your music class, which is l'éducation musicale. And remember that an ordinateur is a computer, so of course you would deal with that in l'informatique or computer class. Again, you need to know how to spell these for your test. For the third section of your test, you will have to write out some times in French words. Now, the good news is that the times that you see here on your study guide are the exact 5 times you will need to be able to write out for your test. The bad news is you need to know how to spell them out, and it does count with the spelling and whether or not you get the whole phrase. So if you need to do a little studying on your paper plate clocks, you can do that, but you will have to know how to say 2:15, which in French they say quarter after 2, which is 2 hours and a quarter, 2 heures et quart. For 3:30, they say 3 hours and a half, as in half past 3, 3 heures et demie. For 10:45, remember 10:45 is technically quarter till 11. So when you go to write it, you're actually going to write 11 hours minus a quarter. 11 heures moins le quart. 12 o'clock, you could either say that it's 12 heures or you can say that it's midi, which is noon. Either one will work. And for 8 o'clock, remember it's just the words for 8 hours, which would be 8 heures. One thing I do want to point out real quick is that the word heure, the word hours, is on every single question. And you know I can give you partial credit whenever we have fill-in-the-blank kinds of sections like this. The word hours would be a great word to know how to spell, because then you could get it right every single time. Other words that will be helpful to be familiar with on this section include the following 5 words. Not that you'll have to know how to spell them, but they'll help clue you in as to which times to write in based on the schedule. Those words would be matin, which is the word for morning, vendredi, which is the word for Friday, après-midi, which is the word for afternoon, lundi, which is the word for Monday, and mercredi, which is the word for Wednesday. There will be a section on your test about RE verbs. It will be multiple choice, so it will look similar to this, but you'll have 3 choices for each one. Don't forget our RE verb song helps us memorize the forms or the endings of our RE verbs. So after you drop the RE, you add SS, sh, SS, sh, ONS, ONS, EZ, ENT, EZ, ENT, les verbes RE. Les verbes RE. So for the to form of vendre, you drop the RE and you add an S. Tu vends ta voiture? Are you selling your car? For the nous form of perdre, you drop the RE and you add that nous ending, ONS. Nous perdons le livre. We lose our book. La prof, attendre, you would drop the RE, and then notice that there's no ending for the il and L form. A teacher here, like la prof, is like the L form, and there's no ending. So do still drop the RE, but then don't add anything to it. La prof attend les élèves. The teacher waits for the students. For perdre with vous, you have to drop the RE and add that vous ending, which is easy. Vous perdez les devoirs, y'all lose the homework. For attendre, you have to drop off the RE, and then be careful here. A lot of people get mixed up. Les élèves are students. Students are boys and girls. That means the ils and elles form, so add that ENT ending. This one says that the students wait for the teacher. And then rendre with je, you drop off the RE, add that je ending, which is the letter S. Je rends les examens, I return the tests. Make sure you know those endings so that you can ace that multiple choice section. For the 5th section on the test, they will give you sentences very, very similar to these. In fact, I believe the 5 that are on your test are pretty much looking at you right now in some form or another. What they're going to do on these sentences is they're going to give you 2 choices for a verb. So this is kind of a bit of a double whammy. You have to, first of all, choose the right verb based on what makes sense in the sentences. So if you don't know what those CER and GER verbs mean, you need to work on that a little bit. We took notes on it. We practiced it a little bit in class. But if you're not familiar with some of these words, make sure you're working on what they mean as well. Once you know what they mean and you can figure out what fits the sentence, you also have to change the ending on them. Now these are ER verbs instead of RE verbs. And don't forget that there's a weird exception with those news forms, so that's why number 4 is starred. So first things first, let's talk about the ER endings. That song goes S, S, O-N-S, O-N-S, Uzen, 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 U-N-T, U-N-T. So when I went to do this first sentence, I had the choice between you pronounce Spanish well or you disturb Spanish well. I went with pronounce, and so once I knew which word I was using, I also had to conjugate it in the right form, which meant dropping the ER and adding the ES for the to ending. For number 2, I had a choice between Julian travels a lot to France or Julian changes a lot in France. That doesn't really make sense. So anyway, Julian travels a lot in France would be the voyager in the Julian form. Keep in mind that Julian's one boy, so it's the il form. You drop the ER, you add the letter E. If you'll notice, a lot of these are things you could have done back in September. The only difference is now you have to choose the right verb and be familiar with the meaning of the verbs, but the endings and things and the process of actually changing the verb we've been doing for a very long time. So for the next one, y'all correct the tests or y'all swim the tests? We're going with correct here. Corriger in the vous form would require you to drop the ER and add the EZ. This is the only one that has that weird issue with the news form. First things first, it was a choice between we start to the or at the cafe or we eat at the cafe. And generally at cafes you talk about eating. So with manger, normally in the past you would drop the ER and you would add the ONS for the news form. But don't forget, if you leave this E out, you end out with nous mangeons, which sounds really weird. So in that news form on GER verbs, make sure you're leaving the letter E in there before the ONS. The next question was a choice between Julie encourages the ball to Luke or Julie throws the ball to Luke. I went with throws, so I dropped off the ER, and the Julie, or the L, the single girl form, is just the letter E. And then I had a choice between I swim to the pool or at the pool, or I change at the pool. Now I know technically you have to change clothes, but it doesn't say change clothes, it just says change. And really generally when you associate piscine, which by the way has a spelling error, sorry about that, should have a C in it, you usually talk about swimming at the pool. So with nager, just like always, I drop the ER, and for the je form, I add the letter E. So do practice knowing what these words mean, but realize that a lot of these questions are very, very similar to the ones on the test. The last section of your test will have you reading a French letter and answering some questions about that letter in English. So the reason why these 4 numbers are starred, 1, 2, 18, and 19, is because these are the questions they're going to ask you. And they're going to basically make it an open-ended question, and they're going to give you a line to write on, and you're going to answer them in English. But you have to be able to read the paragraph or the letter and then decide what the answers to those questions are. The other part of that is you actually have to know what the questions are asking. So if you don't know what numbers 1, 2, 18, and 19 are even asking, it doesn't matter whether or not you can read the whole paragraph really well. If you don't know what they're asking, you can't answer the question. So this is a bit of a double whammy. The questions are in French, the reading is in French. You get to answer in English, but if you can't read the questions or you can't read the paragraph, fat lot of good it does you being able to read in English. So make sure you study knowing what 1, 2, 18, and 19 mean. For number 1, the word quand means when. So when they ask a quand question, they're asking when the girl has a certain class. Quand est-ce qu'elle a les maths? When does she have math? Now, number 2 is a very similar question to that, but it gets a little more specific. À quelle heure is at what time. So à quelle heure commence is what time does something start. The only difference between these two questions, besides the fact that this means when and this means at what time, is you can answer a when question with the day of the week, but at what time you got to answer with a time. Le cours de Histoire Géo is History Geography class. Anglais is English. Espagnol is Spanish. Course are the word for courses or classes at school. Lycée is high school. C'est facile means that a class is easy. Mardi is Tuesday. Jeudi is Thursday. If you voyager or you voyage, you travel. Elle est fascinante, there should be an N in there, by the way, is it's fascinating. Un examen is a test. Soir is nighttime or evening. J'étudie means I study. Avec des copains is with friends. Nous mangeons au café means we eat at the cafe. All of these phrases are things that you'll see in the reading that you kind of need to be familiar with so that you can answer questions about when she has a class, what time she has a class, because she'll mention it in the reading, in the paragraph. 18 and 19, again, very important. Quelle matière est-ce qu'elle n'aime pas is what subject, as in a school subject, does she not like? So you'll need to find whichever one she talks about being boring or not liking or things like that. And then number 19 is an open-ended question about whether or not you like something. Comment est son cours is what is her class like? How is her class? And they'll fill in a class usually. Comment est son cours de biologie? What's her biology class like? And again, if you see something like c'est facile, you'll be able to say it's easy. If you see something like this, you'll have to say it's boring. So be familiar with those questions. I can't say that enough. Nous commençons les cours as we start classes. They'll probably give you a time for when they start school. Vendredi is Friday. Je n'aime pas, don't forget, is I don't like. And c'est ennuyeux is it's boring. Bring this study guide with you to class because we'll answer any questions you have right before the test.